So today we're going to be painting these 6 little cloud studies, and there's a materials list down in the description for you. And I'm going to be putting the photos of each sky up on the screen so that you can follow along with it. And I've got my watercolor paper taped down with my painter's tape. I cut a strip in half to give me my 6 sections here. And I'm going to be using a sky blue pencil to kind of do super basic outlines for where I want the cloud placements. And then we're going to be experimenting with using masking fluid or frisket and a sponge and all these different ways of making clouds. And yeah, okay, so let's get started. So this first picture here is of kind of a rain clouds coming in, and so it's a little darker in value than the other pictures are going to be. And so I'm going to start just by dividing up what seems to me to be the dark part versus the light part. And I'm not going to draw that piece of tree in there. I mean, you can, but I just don't feel like it today. And then I'm going to draw in kind of some of the looser, just where some of those shapes look like they might be. Okay, so it's super light, just to give myself a little bit of reference. Okay, and so for this sky, because there's not super clearly defined edges to any of this cloudness, I'm going to use wet and wet. And so I'm going to take my brush. I'm going to be using a quill brush first. And I'm just going to paint the whole thing with water. Sorry, paint the whole thing with plain water. Okay. And so now I'm going to mix up my colors. And I know it's a gray sky, but if you look closely, it seems like they're actually kind of purple. A lot of purples in there. So I've got Cobalt blue hue and Quinacridone magenta here. And I'm going to try, emphasis on try, to match this kind of purpley gray color that I'm seeing here. Yeah, I thought that might be too much magenta. So this part's a lot of trial and error. End up wasting a lot of paint doing this sometimes when I'm not paying really close attention, or sometimes even if I am. So maybe start off with smaller little bits of paint than I was using to try to not waste so much of your paint. Also, I'm not sure if these will give me the right color that I want, like this mix of colors. Let's see. It's a little too saturated. Let me see. So I'm going to try adding some neutral tint, maybe, if I can open it. Try adding some neutral tint, and this is really strong, so I'm not going to put very much of it. And let's just see if that kind of lowers the brightness of the color a little bit. Oh, see, it grayed it down quite a bit. That's much closer. Okay. Neutral tint it is. So I'm mixing a little more of that here. Test that again. Yeah, that's much better. Okay, so I should have done this part before I put the water on. I apologize. It is still damp, but I'm going to use my clean water over here this time. And I'm gonna add some more on there. And this is a lot of water for this sad little paper. This is a pretty cheap paper. Brand unknown, but it's like a random student grade or lower paper. And so it buckles pretty easily. But that's okay, it should flatten out once it dries. There we go, lift off a little of the extra there. Okay, so it is making a bubble, which might make this exciting, but let's see what we can do. So I'm going to take some of this, and I'm going to start on the bottom just in case it's a little darker than I mean it to be. So we'll go with the darker part. And I'm just going to drop it in where I see, I'm not exactly following the reference, just kind of trying to get the idea of where the clouds are. It doesn't have to be perfect. And so I'm noticing there's only a couple spots that are really light. So I'm actually going to come in and close up some of these open spots here. But we'll just kind of make sure that it's mostly covered. And get rid of this one a little bit. Okay, and then I think I'm going to make it a little bit darker and come in and try to accentuate some of the bottom parts a little bit more. Okay, and I'm going to rinse that off because the top is a little bit lighter. So get some more water. Let's test that. That's probably good. And I'm going to come up here and see, I can't even see the blue now. The lines I put in. I want to make sure this is still wet. Okay. There we go. Make sure that's still wet. It dried a little because I had to run off and take care of something. Okay. And so now I'm going to come in, and yeah, I can't really see where the blue lines were that I made earlier. It was my first time trying to use that pencil for this kind of thing. But that's okay. I can still see it on the reference. I'm actually going to put a little more in here. Oh, that's not the brush I was supposed to be using. I'm sorry, even after like a year of filming, it's just still hard for my mind to keep track of what it's supposed to be doing when I'm filming and trying to paint at the same time. So I don't know about this part here. I don't really... Okay, well, brief frustration meltdown aside, I'm gonna try and make this work because I messed up. I should not have gone back in and tried to put more stuff on there yet. I should have let it dry all the way and then come back in and tried to adjust it. So that was not a good idea. But I'm gonna start on the top again here. Actually, just that color. Oh, that's okay. Okay. So I'm not happy with that at all. I'm gonna let that dry and see if I can do something else with it once it's all dry. But if I keep messing with it when it's wet, it's gonna do like what happened here. So I'm just gonna leave it alone. This is why we practice, right? This is not a tutorial by any means. This is a practice session. So it will not always go well. Alright, next picture. So this picture is got some kind of wispy clouds coming in from the right, and then some kind of more formed ones on the left. And so I thought it would be an interesting one to try. I'm thinking some more Cobalt, but I don't know, I couldn't decide between that and Ultramarine. And then I have some Marine Blue. So I'm kind of want to try mixing the Cobalt and Marine and seeing what color that gives me. So we're going to start with that. It's probably too much. Oh yeah, that one marine blue is way too strong. I mean, that's super pretty, but that is not even kind of that color. I'm gonna try adding some ultramarine. Maybe. There we go. That's actually pretty close. Okay, so we'll go with that one. So on this one, I want to do something a little different. I want to try the frisket. So I'm going to take my little brush that's devoted just to frisket and my little, or to masking fluid, sorry, and my little paper here. Apparently I left my soap uncovered. So I'm going to use the soap to coat the bristles, and that way the masking fluid won't totally ruin the bristles. You want to use a crappy brush that you set aside just for this, but even so, you know, I'd like it to last as long as it can. Okay, so on this one, I think I'm just going to jump in and start laying down some frisket. And I'm not going to worry about any part of the clouds that look wispy. I'm just kind of going for the big blocks of white. And you want to put it in kind of a thick layer. You don't want it super thin, or it will be hard to lift off afterwards. That part maybe should have been not masking fluid, but that's okay. And then I didn't measure those out quite right. Oh, you know what it is? My paper is shorter than the picture. So that's okay. We're just gonna fudge some of this then. Okay, so I think that's all I want to do. Oh no, I'm just kidding. Let me do a little bit more down here. Okay. And then I want to rinse my brush out right away. Okay. And then while that dries, let's go ahead on over to the next one. So for this one, those are pretty hard edges on the cloud, and there's not a whole lot of wispiness going on. So I think what I want to do for this one is to sketch them in and then try to paint around them. So do more of a negative painting thing on these. Okay. Okay, so that's drawn, and I think I'm going to use the same blue as I did for the last one to go in and paint around the clouds. So let's start with that. It is still a little bit hard to see, but it's not as bad as the last one. Okay, I'm gonna let that one dry. This is definitely still wet, but, oh, that's still wet too. Okay, and then while that one dries, I'm gonna go on to the next one. This one seems more like a wet and wet situation, but I don't want to go across the whole paper. I want to leave that, or across the whole piece, I want to leave that top chunk of white not wet. Okay, yes, that sounds like a plan. So let's do this. Actually, you know what? No, because that'll make a weird edge. So I am just going to go all the way up. And then I'll just be careful not to get paint up there. Okay. So then I'm going to take my blue here. And I'm going to drop it in and let it kind of bloom. And then I'm going to lift up some of this. Okay. And then I diluted it a little bit, and I'm going to come in here and try to get some more of this, little bits of blue through here. Dilute it a little bit more, because this isn't pure white, but it's pretty pale. And I want to do this before it dries. And then there's that little bit that's white, so I'll try to leave that. Same with up here, there's a little bit here that's kind of stays white. And then on this edge, I'm going to get a clean paper towel. And this edge, I don't want it to be pulling up like that. I want it to be kind of those little lumps. So I'm going to come lift up the edges like that. And then also right here. Now the color I used, the marine blue, doesn't lift super well. If you're using just Cobalt, Cobalt, I don't remember. Ultramarine I think lifts pretty well. But there we go, we'll try that way, although it's not quite, I think I lifted too much. So I'm not sure if I can put this back in without looking weird, but I'll try. Okay, I probably should just leave that alone. But you know what I could try to do is take some of this away. Let's try that. So I'll try to lift a little more on this side. Okay, that's not so bad. Yeah, it won't lift up anymore. That's okay. Alright, so on this part, this is where I was thinking the sponge might be interesting, but I'm not sure if it's gonna work. Definitely an experiment. Okay, so I'm gonna take some of this super pale blue and I'm gonna put my sponge in it, and then we're gonna test this up here. So that might work. It looks like it might work. I'm gonna pull out some of it on my paper towel. Okay, and then I'm gonna try to come in here and lay in some of that. It's not terrible. Yeah, that's actually not that bad. Huh, okay, it worked better than I thought it would. So then I'm gonna take a little bit more and try to put a little bit more in here with these. Lighten it a little more. I actually really like how this one looks. Okay, so that's cool. The sponge was a success. All right, so this ended up way too dark. I thought it would lighten more than that as it dried. So, oh well. But it is still a little damp, so I don't want to mess with that one yet. But this one seems okay. So what I'm gonna do, I'm nervous about this one, to be honest. I've been nervous about all these experiments. Yay. All right, so what I'm gonna do with this middle one is I'm going to just do clean water over it. And then with the masking fluid lumpies, you have to try to go from different angles. Okay. A little too much water there. Okay. So now on this one, I'm gonna go ahead and take some of my blue and try to come down where it looks like, well, where there's blue, right? And so the masking fluid spots, I don't want my blue to go all the way up to those because there's so much wispies around that, right? So I'm gonna try to leave some of this, leave some space around them, I guess. Okay, and then for this kind of more wispy part here, I'm going to do that and let it just kind of fade into it. Oops, not right there. Don't want it right there. Okay. And then these are just kind of a little bit of blue through the bottom here. Okay, and then a super pale blue up here. I'm going to pull out some of this, and it didn't work all the way, so I'm going to use a little paper towel here. And then I think I want to add a little bit more up here. I think I might have accidentally blotted that with the paper towel. And so then I want to lighten this a little bit more and kind of come in here and do just a little bit, add a little bit of blue. Just a hint coming through the cloud layers like that. And then a little bit more just right here on the side here. Okay, I'm curious how that one's gonna turn out. That absolute nightmare of a one. I kind of, it's still wet on the back. That's why it's still cold and puffy. When it's not cold anymore to the touch, it should be okay to paint on. So I'm gonna try to not be impatient. Let's just move on to this one. Okay. So, so this is an interesting one because it's so little. I thought it'd be fun to have one that was mostly blue sky, and then, you know, what would we do for the cloud? So for this one, what I want to do is to just lift. This is just going to all be lifting. So I'm going to come in first, and we're going to do wet and wet. Cat hair included. There we go. Okay. And then this one, yes. Okay. So, blue. So I'm going to use this brush this time. And I'm just gonna blue this whole thing out, and I'm thinking I should have mixed more paint. But oh well. Okay. And that's just gonna, I think just gonna be about like that, maybe a little more. No, too late, it's going. Okay, that's fine, leave it alone, leave it alone. Okay, and so I'm gonna get a clean paper towel again. Just a part of one. And what I'm going to do, making sure I do this while it's still wet, is I'm going to come into the brightest bits here and try to lift little lumps out here. Okay. See, and so it doesn't take all of it because of the paint that I used, the pigment. The marine blue is so strong. But it is kind of still working. And if you've, like I said, if you've used just like an ultramarine or something, I think it comes out a lot easier. And again, this is not exact, it's just, you know, the idea of it. What's the kind of basic little flow of the clouds there. And you sometimes have to get the paper towel pretty tiny. And you gotta move fast. I think I'm going a little too slow. See, it's gonna start not lifting it up. And so the other super light part is up here. So I wanna make sure I get that real quick. And then I can move on to the smaller pieces that are not quite as bright. And so it doesn't matter if I get them as fast. Confused myself. There we go. There we go. And so you can kind of like scrub out a little bit too. And there's a little bit of one over there. Oops, that was too much. That wouldn't control the back of the paper, so you got to be careful of the back of the paper. And then you can also get kind of a loose print. It's a little more of a gamble, but you can get like kind of a loose print if you do that kind of thing, and don't tighten the paper as much. And so this is getting a little dry. I definitely moved too slowly. So I'm just gonna get these last few little wispy bits here. There we go, and I think that's probably all I'm going to be able to get. You can take a brush and come in like really carefully and like try to get that last little bit there. Actually, you know what? I'll probably blot up more than I mean to, so I'm going to leave that. And then I want to try to get this little bit up. There we go. And that's a good example of why you don't want to scrub too much. By scrub, I just meant like that. So I guess wipe would be a better term. If you scrub, it will start pulling up the paper. Okay, so I think I'm just going to leave that one. That's kind of a fun experiment. You can also go in and add a little bit of paint here. Careful not to go past the edge of the cloud into this, because the blue is still damp and it will make a bloom, which we don't want right here, or at least I don't want. And so I can come in and do that, maybe blot it a little to kind of give a little more depth, I guess. I think that's a little too dark. Yeah, that's a little bit better. I'm gonna do the same thing up here. Okay. And that just adds like a little bit more oomph to it, I guess. Okay, there we go. I'm actually pretty happy with that one. This is looking pretty cool too. So when this dries just a little bit more, I can pull the frisket off and we can see how that turned out. I'm thinking I got the blue too close though, and that these edges are going to be a little too hard, but we'll see. Okay, and so I think now I want to come back to this one. And I liked this picture because it got, it had some kind of browns in it. And then also the purple. And so I have raw umber here that I'm going to go ahead and squeeze out because I think that we'll be using some of this in it. And then I think I'm probably going to need a little bit extra neutral tint. Oh no, I still have some. I'll just use that. Okay, this part's always nerve-wracking. So that's very blue. I get a less blue one. There we go. Alright, so I've got just plain water on my brush, and I'm going to try to do wet and wet on the clouds themselves, but not all the way up, just parts of them. Well, I don't know. Actually, let's just do most of it. So I'm going to start with just this top cloud because it is kind of separate from the others. Okay, and so I want to start by getting some of this kind of purple that we had earlier. But then I'm going to mix it with this brown. And then see how that looks. So that needs a little bit more sienna, I'm thinking. So I'm going to mix a little bit more into there. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and then it kind of comes down along the edge here. And then this part seems to have more purple in it again. So I'm going to come back over here. And this, I want to add the purple too. And it's pretty dark against that white part there. Okay, and then kind of want that to come up this way. And then a little bit of blue actually. It looks like that part of the shadow is a little blue over here. And then I think I'm going to put a little bit more blue in this section too, actually. Ooh, that might be too strong. I'm trying to lift a little of that out. Maybe using this would be better. There we go. And then I'd like to actually lift some of this. Yeah, that's a little better. And then also lift well, not much of it. So I had dried this off a little too much. Add a little bit more water, try to fade that out a bit. Because I don't want those hard edges on there. But that's going to look weird. So I'm going to add a little bit more brown. Back to kind of I don't know. I think I messed with it too much. Yeah, I think it dried a little too much, and so I went back in and it just looks weird. Oh, too much. Okay, that is probably messing with that way, way, way too much. So I think I'm just gonna leave that alone. I'm not super happy with it, but that's okay. Better than messing with it too much, except I forgot this part. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna go on to the clouds under it, which seem to be this kind of purple with a tiny bit of the brown. Maybe a little more purple. I'm just trying to fuzz out some of these edges. Yeah, I don't know. I was really excited about this picture, but it's not really doing what I want it to. But again, I guess that's what practice is for, right? And down here at the bottom, they're kind of a blue going on there. And then I want to do a little bit more of the dark right here. Okay, I think that's where I'm gonna leave that one. So now I'm gonna come to this guy here and take the masking fluid off. Okay, so I have my rubber cement eraser right here. And so I'm gonna come through. Oh no! That part wasn't dry. Oh, you know what? It's because I left these little paint dots on here. So, yes, you need to take your little paint dots. Take some clean water. Remove your little paint dots. I'm supposed to do it when the masking fluid is wet, I think. Or not when the masking fluid's wet. When the paint is still wet, you're supposed to take this off. Or it makes streaks like that. Oh man, and I was liking that picture too. Alright, well, that is too dirty of a paper towel. That's a bummer. Oh well, that's what I get. Not paying attention. Okay, try to get this one a little more too. Well, whoops. Man, I knew better too. It's always it's always when you know better and you still mess up, but it's like extra frustrating. Because you know you're just being a slacker. Alright. Well, let's keep going. So yeah, the hard edges definitely are there. I think they might be there a little more than I want them to be. My blue ended up getting closer than I had meant originally. Like it spread more than I thought it would. It's not bad. I just would like to be able to fade some of those edges out a little. Excuse me. And I don't know if I can without messing it up. Okay, so I'm gonna try, this is another big emphasis on try, to fade out some of these. So I'm gonna take clean water and my little brush so it doesn't hold a bunch of extra water. And I'm gonna come in here, let's start with this part. And I'm gonna kind of just put it on here, like that. And it's a bit of a triangle piece. And then clean paper towel and lift. Okay, so that worked. So let's keep doing that for some of this. And I can get the extra little wispies in there as well. Let it sit for kind of a second to activate and then lift. Oh yeah, that should work. That should work. Okay. And I don't want to do it with all of them, right? Just some to kind of give some variation. Okay, I think that's pretty good for lifting on that one. And so I think what I want to do, oh wait, just kidding. This is a little dark. There we go. That's better. That was bugging me. Okay, and so now I think what I want to do is take some of the blue and come in kind of like we did with the other one and kind of just add a little more dimension to the clouds here. I kind of softened some of those hard edges too that we ended up with from the masking fluid. Okay, I think, let me see, a little bit more right here. I think that's pretty good on that one, actually. I think that one's done too. I like that. So the frisket did work, I think, though, or the masking fluid, but I think that it, I don't know about the hard edges. I feel like I wanted more wispiness to come through. But it's an interesting one. I think maybe the lifting might have been a better fit for right here. Or like lifting with a brush. Like the paper towel and then a brush. I don't know. maybe that's one for next time. So this is finally looking dry. See how it flattened out? I don't know if you can see that, but it mostly flattened out. So I'm gonna come back to this and let's see. I think just clear water again. Oh, that has blue in it. Yep. Has a lot of blue in it. Okay, so clean water with probably a little bit of blue still in it. And this is why we wanted it to dry first. All right, so I'm gonna take another paper towel. It's exercise uses lots of paper towels. There we go. And I'm gonna pull up some of that because we don't need it all. And it is smearing that a little bit, but that's okay because I'm gonna be covering most of it anyway. So the parts that are light in here, I want to try to still leave. But I'm going to go around some of the rest of it. Okay, so try to thin this out a little bit because I don't want it quite that strong. Let's see. That's still pretty strong. So I'm actually going to come all the way down here with what's left in my brush. Made such a mess. And I'm going to try that. Let's see what this... That's better. Okay. So I'm going to come in here because I did kind of like how this was looking. I think I just had messed up the bottom. Okay, and then to the bottom, I'm going to go with this a little bit darker, and we're just going to brush that on. And then I'm going to let that dry a bit, and then we're going to put on some more. So let's get going on this last one while that dries. So this picture is against the sun, obviously there, and I feel like that's gonna, I thought it would be cool to try because it looks like a very difficult exercise. Kind of regretting that I picked it now after having this one go that way. But we have it, so let's see if we can do it. So this one, I think definitely needs to be drawn. So I'm just gonna do the, well, that's not in the right spot. Do the loose outline here. Okay, so kind of gives me an idea. So I kind of want to use a mix of these two things. So I'm going to start by putting the blue in and lifting out what's wispy, and then we'll go to the big clouds that are fully formed. I'm out of blue, so that was the marine blue and the cobalt. Try to not put a bunch of it here this time. Whee! It's gonna be a bunch. I still put too much. Be making blue and purple pictures for a little while. Okay. That's fine and all, but it's a bit strong, I think. That's actually okay. All right, and then kind of wanting to use, yeah, some neutral tint in there, just a bit, because the sun was so bright, it made the sky itself look a little darker. And so I kind of like that idea. Oh yeah, there we go. All right, so let's try this out. And again, have to work fast. Okay, so now while that's doing its thing, I'm going to use a clean brush and I'm going to try to come lift out some of these little wispies. You have to keep rinsing the brush. And that one, I'm just gonna straight up try to lift. So one of the problems here is I went so loosely on these shapes that I don't have, I feel like the edges that I should have had, because the edges are sharp, but they're not the right shapes. There's all these little fluffies that are coming out that I feel like I should have been able to have in there. And so that's kind of a bummer. I'm not quite sure how I would want to do that. Because the edges are so bright on the clouds in this picture that when I try to lift them, it still leaves the blue. And I just feel like that doesn't look very good. And then over here, you know, this is connected more. Like there should be a lot more of this that I could lift, but it's not. So I feel like it doesn't really look great. But I mean, that's what, you know, like I said earlier, that's what these experiments are for. And practice. One of these days I will find a method that I really like. If you have a method that you really like that has worked for you so far, and you don't mind sharing, please let us know in the comments, because I think it would be helpful for other people who are struggling with it as well. Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess that's about what I'm gonna do for trying to lift it. Oh no, I forgot this part. Okay, so maybe that's what we'll do for trying to lift it. Yeah, man, that's a bummer. So maybe frisketing, or using masking fluid like on the edges more precisely would have been a better idea. I think maybe next time that's what I'll try. Anyway, let that dry. Let's come back over to this. And now that it's dried a little bit, I want to add a darker, I want to add more dark to this. So I'm going to take some more neutral tint. Oh, that was way too much neutral tint. But I'm going to darken these purple down quite a bit. And can't even see my little paper anymore. Oh no, 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 no. Might not even be dark enough. Let's go a little darker. And then bring in more of the purple, because there needs to be more of a purple there. Oh, see, that's better. Okay, so we'll go with that. And ooh, okay, nervous about this part. Let's see. So just try to go where I see the dark clouds, because they're kind of in chunks, right? That's what I was trying to do earlier and messed up. I'll lift out a little of that, because where the light spots are here are, I think, still darker than up here. And also, I don't want quite that hard of edges. Oops. Okay, so maybe that, and then I'm gonna lighten it a little bit and come down here. Oh, maybe that was too much light. Oops, don't scrub the paper. Okay, well, you know, it's funny, I thought that would be one of the easiest ones and it gave me the most trouble. Okay, so I think that is probably as good as that one's gonna get. So let's finish up this last one so we can be done, because this has been a long video. Okay, so this one, I think that I'm gonna start with a pale version of this, and we're just gonna go pretty loosely, trying to keep the idea of what I'm seeing. And I'm gonna do it on dry so it doesn't all bleed together. So it's definitely not accurate to the picture, but I think it's getting the idea of it. And this one does not have quite the brightness that the ones below it have. Okay, that's not terrible. So, I think I'm going to use, there's like a tiny bit of brown in here, but I'm mostly going to use more of my purple gray. With some of that mixed in. Okay. And so I want to keep that for the light kind of gray that's in here. And then put this new color in for the darker spots. Okay, I think that's gonna work for that one. Well, that ended up being a lot longer video than I meant for it to be, so I'm sorry. But I hope that this was a good practice for you. You got to see all my mistakes, and see some cool things that worked. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions or comments. And I'd love to hear how your practice session went. If you're happy with how your clouds turned out or what you learned from it. All right, until next time.